Your dog sits on your feet while you're working at your desk, standing in the kitchen, waiting in line at the vet. You think it's cute, maybe a little clingy. What if every time your dog chooses your feet over the entire room, they're making a calculated decision about safety, hierarchy, and survival that reveals something profound about how they see you? Subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to learn will change how you interpret this behavior forever. Number 1. The pressure point of trust. When your dog settles their full weight onto your feet, they're not just being affectionate. They're engaging in a behavior called contact resting, and the location they choose reveals everything about their internal security system. Research from canine behavioral scientists shows that dogs position themselves in zones of perceived safety based on threat assessment and resource value. And your feet represent the lowest point of physical contact, where they can still maintain tactical awareness of their environment. Watch what happens physiologically when your dog sits on your feet. Their heart rate decreases, their breathing slows, their cortisol levels drop, because they've made the calculation that you are stable enough, trustworthy enough, predictable enough to serve as their anchor point while they let their guard down. This isn't random placement. A dog sitting beside you can be ignored or left behind. A dog sitting on you creates a physical tether that means you cannot move without them knowing, cannot leave without them feeling it instantly through the pressure sensors in their paws. They're not trying to control you. They're trying to stay connected to their most reliable source of safety in a world that still feels, on some primal level, full of uncertainty. This is where the behavior gets interesting, because the feet you're standing on become the foundation of something much larger than affection. Number 2. The scent library at ground level. Your feet carry an olfactory signature that your dog reads like a biographical database. And when they sit on them, they're doing something more sophisticated than smelling you. Dogs possess up to 300 million olfactory receptors compared to your 6 million. And the concentration of scent glands in human feet, combined with the bacteria that colonize the skin there, creates what ethologists call a scent profile, a unique chemical fingerprint that your dog has memorized down to the molecular level. Studies published in Animal Cognition Research demonstrate that dogs can detect emotional states through scent, including fear, stress, and happiness. And your feet broadcast this information constantly through eccrine sweat glands that activate during emotional responses. When your dog sits on your feet, they're positioning themselves at the source of the freshest, most concentrated chemical information about your current state. They know if you're anxious before you do, can smell the adrenaline, can detect the shift in your bacterial ecosystem that happens when your body chemistry changes. This creates a feedback loop of security. Your dog monitors your emotional baseline, and if you remain calm, it confirms their environment is safe. If you spike with stress, they know before your heart rate even peaks. They're not being needy when they follow you from room to room and reclaim your feet each time you stop moving. They're maintaining their information pipeline, staying current on the data that determines whether they can relax or need to stay alert. And your feet are the most honest broadcaster you have. Number 3. The evolution of guarding behavior. This behavior traces back to pack dynamics that govern survival for thousands of years. And what looks like cleanliness in your living room is actually a diluted version of a guarding strategy that kept wild canids alive. In wolf packs and wild dog groups, lower-ranking members would position themselves in physical contact with higher-ranking members during rest periods, not out of submission, but out of strategic alliance. Research from field ethologists studying wild canid behavior shows that contact resting creates a mutual defense network where each animal serves as an early warning system for the other, and the animal who maintains contact controls the movement pattern of the group. Your dog sitting on your feet is engaging this same template. They're not guarding you from threats in the aggressive sense. They're aligning themselves with what they perceive as a high-value pack member. someone whose movements they want to track, whose protection they want to stay within range of, whose decisions about when to move and where to go they're prepared to follow instantly. The physical pressure on your feet serves as a communication channel that works both ways. You shift your weight, they feel it and prepare to move. They tense, you feel it through your feet and look down. This is partnership mechanics encoded at the species level. And your dog is operating on software that's been refined across millennia to keep them connected to their survival network. When your dog refuses to sit anywhere else in the room, when they tolerate being stepped on rather than lose contact with your feet, they're telling you something about where you rank in their hierarchy of safety and trust. And it's not a small thing. Number 4. The anxiety solution you're providing. Separation anxiety manifests in dogs as a dysregulation of their attachment system, and sitting on your feet is often a coping mechanism that reveals both their vulnerability and their problem-solving intelligence. When behavioral scientists measure cortisol levels in dogs with separation anxiety, they find that physical contact with the owner creates an immediate low in stress hormones. But the contact has to be owner-initiated or mutually engaged to be effective. And foot-sitting accomplishes this perfectly, because it allows the dog to maintain the connection without demanding active attention from you. Your dog has learned through trial and error that sitting on your feet gives them the physiological calming they need while allowing you to continue whatever you're doing, cooking, working, talking to someone else. And this is actually sophisticated emotional regulation for an animal that experiences your absence as a survival threat. The pressure of your feet creates proprioceptive input, sensory information from their body that grounds them literally and neurologically, activating their parasympathetic nervous system and counteracting the sympathetic arousal of anxiety. Dogs that sit on feet often show reduced destructive behaviors, less vocalization during brief separations, and lower baseline anxiety throughout the day, because they found a strategy that works. They're not broken for needing this. They're adapted to an environment where their primary attachment figure is a different species who doesn't naturally understand their distress signals. And they've engineered a solution that meets their nervous system's needs without overwhelming yours. The fact that they return to your feet every single time you stop moving isn't pathological. It's their way of managing a bond that matters more to their sense of safety than almost anything else in their environment. And the regularity of it should tell you how much they rely on you to be their secure base. Number 5. The temperature regulation secret. Body heat exchange between you and your dog when they sit on your feet creates a thermoregulatory partnership that most owners never recognize. And this becomes especially significant in understanding why the behavior intensifies in certain conditions. Dogs maintain a body temperature between 101 and 102.5 degrees Fahrenheit, several degrees higher than yours. And when they make contact with your feet, which are often cooler than your core due to circulation patterns, they're creating a heat differential that benefits both of you in ways that depend on ambient temperature and emotional state. Research on canine thermoregulation shows that dogs seek contact with cooler surfaces when they're experiencing stress, because the cooling effect helps reduce their core temperature, which rises during anxiety states. And your feet provide a mobile, reliable cooling platform that moves with them through the environment. During cold weather or in air-conditioned spaces, the dynamic reverses. Your dog's higher body temperature warms your feet, and your feet, pressed against the ground, serve as an anchor point where your dog can share their body heat without overheating themselves. This isn't just physics. Studies indicate that temperature regulation is deeply tied to emotional regulation in mammals, and the comfort of optimal temperature creates a neurological state that promotes bonding and calm. When your dog curls around your feet in winter or sprawls across them in summer, they're engineering a microclimate that serves both your comfort and theirs. And this reciprocal exchange registers in their brain as evidence of a functional partnership. The thermal feedback they get from your feet becomes associated with safety and comfort, which is why dogs often seek feet specifically during thunderstorms, fireworks, or other stress events, when their body temperature spikes and they need both emotional and physical cooling. They've learned your feet are a climate-controlled safety zone, and they return to it whenever their system needs regulation. Number 6. The communication channel you don't hear. Your dog sitting on your feet creates a haptic language, communication through touch and pressure, that operates below the threshold of your conscious awareness, but shapes your relationship in powerful ways. When dogs maintain physical contact with a person, their heart rates synchronize within minutes, a phenomenon documented in studies on human-animal bonding, where researchers found that sustained contact creates measurable physiological attunement between species. Your dog feels your pulse through the blood vessels in your feet, senses the micro-movements of your muscles before you step, detects the shift in your balance when you're about to stand. And this gives them a somatic understanding of your intentions that they can't get through vision or sound alone. They're reading you at the level of tissue and blood flow, and this creates a communication loop that's immediate and non-verbal. You feel their weight, which grounds you and often lowers your own stress levels without you realizing it. They feel your stability, which confirms their safety assessment. This exchange happens in the background of your awareness, but it's shaping the bond continuously, creating what attachment researchers call felt security, the embodied sense that the other is present and responsive. Dogs that sit on feet often develop an uncanny ability to predict their owner's movements, not through psychic ability, but through this constant haptic data stream that teaches them your patterns at a muscular level. They know when you're about to go to the door before you move because they felt the preliminary weight shift in your feet. They know when you're settling in for a while because your stance widens slightly and your weight distributes differently. This is why removing them from your feet often results in immediate return. You've disrupted their primary sense organ for understanding your state and intentions, and they need to re-establish that connection to feel oriented in the environment. The pressure on your feet isn't clingy. It's their way of staying in conversation with you through a language your species barely remembers, but their species still speaks fluently. When your dog chooses to sit on your feet instead of beside you, instead of on the couch next to you, instead of anywhere else in the room, they're making a declaration about your role in their life that most owners misinterpret as dependence. The feet are the foundation, the lowest structural point, the place where your body meets the ground and generates stability for everything above it. And your dog recognizes this with an intelligence that doesn't require abstract thought. By positioning themselves there, they're not trying to control you or restrict your movement. They're saying, "You are my foundation, the stable point in my world, the structure I build my sense of safety around. And I want to be as close to that foundation as possible, because everything else in my life depends on it being solid." This behavior intensifies when their world feels unstable, when routines change, when new people enter the environment, when they're sick or hurt. Because the need for a reliable foundation becomes more urgent when everything else is uncertain. Your dog has assessed the entire landscape of their life, all the variables and possibilities and threats and comforts, and they've determined that you, specifically the part of you that contacts the earth and holds you upright, are the element they most need to stay connected to. This isn't pathology or poor training, or a behavior that needs to be corrected. This is trust made visible, security seeking made physical, and the clearest possible statement a dog can make about who they've decided you are in their internal hierarchy of safety. The next time your dog sits on your feet and you feel that familiar pressure, understand what you're feeling. It's the weight of being someone's entire foundation. The responsibility of being the stable point in a consciousness that experiences your presence as the difference between safety and fear. And it's one of the most profound compliments a dog can give. Share this with someone who has a dog that won't leave their feet. Subscribe to the channel for more insights into what your dog is really telling you. And remember that every behavior your dog repeats is a message about what they need and who they've decided you are in their life.